So the honest truth is that your ability to get lean is primarily determined by your eating habits. Sure, you can walk 10,000 steps per day and that will help you create a calorie deficit, and you can lift weights and that will help you build muscle. But the main leverage point when it comes to fat loss is how you eat. And because this is so important, in this video, I want to share with you 3 simple principles that will help you stick to your calorie deficit so you can finally get to that low body fat percentage. So without any further ado, let's dive into principle number 1, which is never let your diet mistakes multiply. And what I mean by this is that as you create a calorie deficit, you're ideally tracking your calories and you're restricting your food intake, you're doing a good job, you're still inevitably going to be making some mistakes that will put you over your calorie budget. This could be a snack in the afternoon that you said you're going to make up for and you never do. Or it could be something you grabbed impulsively because it was convenient, you got really busy, and you didn't really think about it. It could be that you got invited for dinner, you show up, and the only option available there is pizza, and you end up overeating. This happens to all of us at some point. Now, the good news is that it's never any one of these single mistakes that determine your long-term results. And what actually determines your success in the long term is what you do right after such a mistake. If one mistake ends up triggering an internal dialogue where you're now catastrophizing and overgeneralizing, saying I'm a failure, I just blew it, this doesn't work for me, and then that starts a downward spiral of bad decisions that lasts a couple of days or even a couple of weeks, well, then you have a real problem. That's the exact pattern that I see preventing people from actually getting lean because they can't stick with things. Every little mistake turns into a major disaster. On the other hand, the pattern that I see with those who are successful is that as soon as they make a mistake, they focus all of their energy in making sure their next decision gets them back on track ASAP. The mindset you have right after that first mistake is ultimately what determines your success or failure. You never want to allow those bad decisions to gain momentum. James Clear in his book Atomic Habits calls this the never miss twice rule. And as you get back on track, those slip-ups are nothing more than minor blips in the grand scheme of things. All of it is just data that's helping you optimize your plan and making you even more consistent in the future. And the other thing that's going to make you more consistent is also hitting that like button. And the truth that more people need to know is that perfection is impossible when you want to change your lifestyle. And failure is a natural part of the process of you becoming the type of person that's not only just going to be able to get lean, but also stay lean. Now, the second principle that's going to help you stick with your diet is something I call progressive consistency. The idea for this came from the fact that our brains don't do so well with a complete overhaul approach to changing habits. And in the fitness world, we hear this a lot. Starting tomorrow, I'm on 1,700 calories. I'm going to do 1 meal a day. I'm going to do low carb and I'm going to eat 100% clean. And this person might be able to stick with this for a couple of weeks, depending on how motivated they are. But the thing is, getting to 12% or 15% body fat might take you 6 months, might take you even longer. And at some point, motivation will run out. And then this all-in overhaul approach becomes unsustainable for most people. And then they start falling off track. They eventually revert back to their old habits, end up regaining all the weight they've lost, and in some cases even adding more weight. And if you've been in a similar situation, what I found works better is taking a more progressive consistency approach. And how this works is you start by making one strategic change that's going to have a very positive impact on your results, and then you allow the time for your brain to accept that change as a new baseline. For example, you fully commit to doing a new healthy filling meal one that gets you 1/3 of your total daily protein, and it's easy to do every day. As time goes by, this meal now becomes a part of your daily routine. And now you've effectively fixed a big part of your nutrition. You've solved 1 out of every 3 meals a day, and you got a lot of protein solved. And so this is your new baseline. This is your new normal from where you can build. So you've taken this big problem, which is nutrition, and you've chunked it into parts and you're solving one part at a time. And by taking the time to solidify each change, the changes will actually stick and will become automatic. And each step of the way, you're building a lot of confidence, you're stacking wins compared to trying to get 10, 15 things done at once just to get overwhelmed and fall off track. And we naturally do this with training. On day one, you're not gonna try to bench 300 pounds. You're gonna establish your baseline strength level, and then you're gonna progressively overload from there. And I know this approach requires more patience, but if you do it right, you only need to do it once compared to losing the same 20 pounds over and over again. Now, the third principle that I highly recommend is that you be very deliberate with how you allocate your calories. And what I mean by that is that you want to have a clearly defined ratio of your quote unquote fuel calories versus your quote unquote pleasure calories. And if your goal is to get down to 10 to 15% body fat, well, the reality is that 80-90% of your food intake should be based around these three things. First, you optimize for satiety. This means that you're prioritizing foods that fill you up, that reduce your hunger levels, and that will naturally help you sustain a calorie deficit. Second, you optimize for body composition, which means that you're choosing foods that have a high protein per calorie ratio so you can get enough protein each day without going over your carbs and fats. And third, you're optimizing for performance and health. This means that you're choosing whole, healthy, unprocessed foods that you digest well and that give you plenty of energy both in the gym and outside of the gym. And these are your fuel calories. So if you have 3 meals a day, 21 meals per week, that means that 17 to 19 meals, so 80-90%, are based around these three things. Now, the remaining 2 to 4 meals, or 10 to 20% of your food intake, can be your quote-unquote pleasure calories. And the key word here is can be, meaning you have a choice. If you want to have indulgences, you can actually make them a part of your plan, meaning that they can be proactive and structured rather than being reactive and random, so you can plan them and track them. And it's a feature built into the system rather than you thinking that you're cheating the system if you have some of those foods or that you're doing something wrong. By having the choice, you're making your calorie deficit a lot more reasonable and sustainable over the long term, and you're also avoiding the forbidden food effect where if there are certain foods that you would normally have and now they're on a forbidden food list, well, the desirability for those foods increases. And this is actually what a lot of people do. They go ultra restrictive with their calorie deficit, they put all these foods they would normally have on the ban list, they're now forbidden, and then they have an occasional rebellion against their diet where they go completely off the rails, have all the foods they couldn't have in very large amounts. Essentially turns into a binge, which wipes out all the results they had, so the net result is zero progress while they feel like they're dieting. Instead, we want to have a system in place that allows us the option to have that indulgence if we think it's worth it. We're doing intelligent calorie allocation. So this is a rational decision rather than it being an emotional one. And strategies like this really boost sustainability. They make the calorie deficit a lot more reasonable and easier to stick with, and ultimately improve your consistency. And at the end of the day, consistency is king when it comes to getting results. What's going to help you be more consistent is hitting that subscribe button below, enable notifications by hitting the bell icon. Details for coaching if you want to work with me to get help on this are in the description below. Check those out. Also leaving another video here at the end that covers 5 rules to help you stay in a calorie deficit. So check out that video as well, and I'm going to see you right there.